lot of the times, at the beginning of this conversation, you said that you're still extracting the lessons from your journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely normal. I always go through these, and a lot of the times, I'm a Christian as well. I will experience things and in the moment think, why on earth did I have to go through that?
Yeah.
And it's not until years later that I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness I went through that because I'm well equipped now for this. And that's the same thing with The Apprentice, that even me getting rejected from The Apprentice season 18 needed to I'm so glad it happened because I'm nowhere near the person that I was the year before that. So, and the business is nowhere near where it was as well. So yeah, I definitely do agree with that.
It's funny that actually, because I think there are, I think there's a massive lesson in there. You know, you spoke about rejection. I think sometimes rejection can be quite hard, and really, really hard. And even at this moment in time, I think there are elements or experiences in my life where I don't want to say I'm struggling. In fact, no, let's just use the word struggling. I'm struggling to maybe understand why these things have taken place. And there is a sense of rejection in that. But actually, there's a lot to be learned from those lessons and those rejections. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
I think it's very, very difficult in the moment. But I think with time, one, you will heal. But also, I think you'll be a bit more clearer in regards to what those sort of lessons will be.
For me, an important thing to mention is that it always stings.
Me, you, and the driver, we gotta get this photo together. We gotta get this selfie.
Oh, open it. Have you got a bag? A bag for fucking what? You grocery shopping or something? You doubling up on these bags?
I was like, wow, women are incredible.
I've been out here every single weekend since I've been doing this, picking up people who have had amazing nights.
Off, mum, I'm sleeping. I'm staying here. Leave me alone.
I mean, I've always said this anyway, that this thing has killed me, but I can see I've aged. I look at my beard, mad grey hairs. It is mad. Sorry, you mentioned something else as well. Like you mentioned it, I think the day of the event, as to you received a lot of compliments in regards to your speaking ability, or certainly your presentation skills whilst presenting things, I guess, on Apprentice. Like, I don't know, can you speak on that maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, so going on there as a speaker, there was a lot of pressure on my shoulders, I would say.
Yeah.
Because that is the most intense, high pressure situation I'm ever going to be in. There are 8 cameras on me as I'm speaking, and if you've watched the show, you know that it's an entertainment show, so they really thrive off mistakes.
Okay.
So I knew that even if I make the smallest mistake as a speaker, they're going to exaggerate it with the edits, and I can really lose my credibility as a speaker. So I had a lot of pressure on my shoulders. But fortunately, I delivered one of the speeches. Funnily enough, it was the episode that I got fired in.
Okay.
But I delivered a speech that people were saying is one of the best presentations ever in the 19 seasons of The Apprentice. And that feels good. It feels like a win to me, even though I didn't win the money. Going in there as a speaker, as someone who helps people get better at speaking, I'd say that's a win.
Amazing, man. Honestly, I loved your story. I think there was even so there's a bit more to your story that you mentioned last week when I met you. I can't actually remember it now, and hopefully I remember it in a few minutes' time. But before I do, or hopefully if I do you want to pick up the next question?
Let's do it. When was the last time you stepped out of your comfort zone? Why and how did you feel?
I think as I get a little bit older, I think I'm beginning to step up my comfort zone maybe a little bit more. And the reason being is because the things that I want to do and I aspire to do, I think will demand that I step up my comfort zone. So actually, public speaking, I would say, is probably not myself. It's not myself. I don't think that's it was in my nature as a young boy, as a young man. And I think I've had to develop the skills to become better at speaking. So that actually comes to my first experience. My first experience where I stepped on my comfort zone was traveling. So I went to South America in 2012. So like I was there for 3 months on my own, but a friend came out with me for the first maybe couple of weeks. So he was with me in Colombia, and when I look back, the person who I am now and the person who I was then, I'm going to say night and day, you know what I mean? Chalk and cheese, honestly. So I was very quiet. I think maybe amongst my friends I might be a little bit loud, etc., etc. And maybe a little bit eccentric, but generally speaking I was very quiet. But obviously when you're alone and traveling for 3 months on your own from Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, like you have to have a sense of assurance and confidence amongst the people who you're speaking with and meeting every single day in terms of introducing yourself, telling your story, etc., etc. So by the time I came back, I had millions of stories. Millions of stories. And that's the reason why I kind of like wrote a book based on my experience as a driver, and I kind of like, I don't say shoveled in there, because I think my traveling experiences, I think, created the foundation for why I became a driver in some respect. But that's one experience. And then I'll say I did my UFB course not too long ago, and for the first time, so it was a long time coming, I should have done it good 20 years ago, but anyway, that's another story in itself. But actually, I think when I was on the course, I realized I was not in a great place in life, and I felt I needed to summon the courage, dare I say, and let me say energy as well, to put myself in a place where I was comfortable, confident to be able to pass the course, because I was there for maybe a good 4 weeks. And I think when my starting point in terms of where I was when we first started doing the sessions and where I finished, I think we're in, let's say, in 2 different places. So I was very proud with how I came out of that period. And in fact, to add a bit more context, my dad was in his last month or so, I'd been told they had 6 months. So by the time I went out to Germany to do my UFB and I'd been told my first session wasn't good enough, I became a bit deflated. And then you start thinking about everything that's going on around you. My dad's got not long left, etc., etc. Should I be here, etc., etc. So you're battling those thoughts each and every day. So they're the thoughts, and they're my experiences. I actually remember what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say was that, oh, come on, Andrew. In regards to public speaking is important to me, or the reason why I came onto the course last week is because I feel, as I mentioned before, I think in the brief and the email that you might have sent, in order to become a better coach, I think I need to become a really, really good speaker. So that's why it's really, really important to me, and that's why I found it really, really inspiring, and why I loved your story, because I feel the skill sets that you've learned along the way and then in becoming a speaker held you in good stead in terms of actually coming out of the Apprentice with your head held high.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. And a lot of the times at the beginning of this conversation, you said that you're still extracting the lessons from your journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely normal. I always go through these, and a lot of the times, I'm a Christian as well, I will experience things and in the moment think, why on earth did I have to go through that?
Yeah.
And it's not until years later that I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness I went through that, because I'm well equipped now for this. And that's the same thing with The Apprentice, that even me getting rejected from The Apprentice season 18 needed to I'm so glad it happened, because I'm nowhere near the person that I was the year before that. So, and the business is nowhere near where it was as well. So yeah, I definitely do agree with that.
It's funny that actually, because I think there are, I think there's a massive lesson in there. You know, you spoke about rejection. I think sometimes rejection can be quite hard, and really, really hard. And even at this moment in time, I think there are elements or experiences in my life where I don't want to say I'm struggling. In fact, no, let's just use the word struggling. I'm struggling to maybe understand why these things have taken place. And there is a sense of rejection in that. But actually, there's a lot to be learned from those lessons and those rejections. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
I think it's very, very difficult in the moment. But I think with time, one, you will heal. But also, I think you'll be a bit more clearer in regards to what those sort of lessons will be.
For me, an important thing to mention is that it always stings. So it will still sting, even though I do have the perception and I do extract the lesson from the L. It always stings. So I could have a sales meeting today with a company who I think I'm going to work with, and then they could tell me, actually, we've changed our mind, and it will hurt. But in that moment of hurt, I'll ask myself, is there anything I can learn? Is there anything I can improve next time? And I think I like to take extreme ownership, even when it's not necessarily my fault, because then I get into problem solving mode. And I'm like, okay, cool. Even though it's not necessarily my fault, was there anything at all that potentially I could have done or I can do next time to try and avoid this from happening? And I think that's what has accelerated my career.
Great question, all right? Or question, sorry. I think you said something really poignant. I think as I've got maybe a little bit older, all right, and I think maybe through some experiences, I've become quite, stoic might be the wrong way, no, I've been quite disciplined and organized in regards to the things I need to do day to day and the things I need to do in order to improve, etc., etc. Do you find in being that analytical, it can be like of detriment? I guess it's a double-edged sword, or even like, you know, like a yes or a no, like depending on what side of the coin you flip.
I think it is a double-edged sword, and it's one of those things where there are pros and cons to everything. The pro is that I learn,
Yeah.
I evolve, and I improve faster. The con is that I will beat myself up in that moment. What I'm super conscious of is that I will only do that for the rest of the day. So I see every day as a new opportunity, as a new blessing. And if I go through whatever happened yesterday and I make a really bad mistake, I'm super critical of myself.
Yeah.
I'll have an early night, I'll wake up and then move on.
Cool.
So even though I do have those periods of being very analytical, of being a bit hard on myself, I don't allow them to last for days on end.
Cool. And just with that, because this might be a life lesson, because I'm beginning to think about this a lot. So like I was with someone who I met on the course not too long ago, and I was having dinner with him and his dad, and we were talking about the importance of actually just sitting down and taking time for yourself. Do you find, because this is the problem I think I'm having at this moment in time, as to being maybe a little bit hard on myself, being very organized, but trying to get a lot done and trying to achieve a lot. Do you find you actually get the opportunity to enjoy the day or enjoy the moment?
I have to force myself to do it.
Okay, cool.
So it has to be intentional. It doesn't happen automatically.
Okay, cool.
For example, we just had a bank holiday weekend.
Yeah.
And the bank holiday Monday,
Yeah.
every single meeting I had on that Monday, I cancelled it.
Okay.
And I said to myself, I'm relaxing this Monday. I knew that my fiance would be out of work and I just spent the day with her.
Cool, nice.
My natural instinct would have just been to work. But I had to intentionally do that. And actually, that's something that The Apprentice highlighted for me. Being in the house with all of these other super extroverted personalities was very difficult, because as much as I speak for a job and the attention is on me, I still consider myself introverted because I get my energy by being by myself. I need, especially after a long day of speaking, I'm so drained, I just need to be by myself, PlayStation, whatever. And that's how I recharge the batteries to then be the best version of myself that everyone on television sees.
Okay.
Without that, the other part of me suffers and struggles. So I really struggled in the house on The Apprentice because I didn't want to be antisocial.
Yeah.
I didn't want to seem arrogant. Also, you know, being the black male on there, I didn't want, I just know that there are certain kind of stereotypes around. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those ones where, you know, unless you're another black male, you probably won't understand. But I didn't want to come across as antisocial, as arrogant, whatever. So then I struggled with, should I just spend this time by myself? Everyone else is in the front room just gossiping, talking. Or should I go and chill with them? And sometimes I would go and socialize and I'd wake up a little bit drained, etc. So now, the lesson that I've learned is, for me to be the best when I'm speaking, coaching, keynoting, I have to recharge the batteries. And I cannot pour from an empty jug. I fully am aware of that. So when I have something really important coming up, even if I have to-do list, even if I have things coming up, I have to prioritize putting time aside, because else it's just a downward slope from there.
Cool. And do you think, I don't know if this is like we're in the 21st century, yeah? Cool, I didn't know that. All right, I didn't know the 21st century. All right, cool. Do you think this is a modern problem where we now are so much more intelligent that we can achieve more, and in so, like, we're always doing that little bit much more? I hope I'm making sense. And I guess the reason why I say that is because, I don't know if I'm asking the same question, which might be, do you think we don't know how to enjoy ourselves? I don't know if I've asked the right question, actually. Sorry, and let me give a bit of context if I've not asked the question correctly. In that, because we're so intentional, like based on having this conversation now and obviously knowing myself quite well, I'm quite intentional in regards to what I want to do. And I'm quite confident that I'm going to get there or thereabouts. But in so, like 24 hours doesn't seem enough sometimes. It doesn't feel enough. So you're trying to fit so much into that 24 hours that you might forget to actually have fun. But I actually love to have fun. But at the same time, in recent years, I also like a bit of downtime. I love a bit of downtime. I love walking. I love spending time in nature, etc., etc. But again, back to that 24 hours, there's not enough time. So in so, have we forgot how to have fun? Like this weekend, someone's asked me, do I want to go somewhere? Someone's asked me, do I want to go somewhere? And I provisionally said yes, but I'm really thinking about spending time with myself. And who knows, this might be the reflective point in my life where, because obviously I've had a loss, you know, you need to sit down. And I've been told that. You need to sit down. You need to relax. It's not every day move. You need to sit down. So I'm beginning to ask questions. Last year I had an amazing year in some respects. Traveled about 8-9 times, all that type of stuff. But I also told friends, it's mad. Like, I've been away 8-9 times, probably 4 or 5 times more than anybody else, but I feel overworked. Like, wow. Yeah, overworked. And I don't know, it might be a case of having to work hard in order to pay these trips, etc., but I feel overworked. Because on these trips, you're walking around, you're stomping the streets. You know what I mean? It's my 40th in about 10 days' time. Wow. I've said 2 things. One, no, in fact, I've not said 2. I've said 2 things, or 1 thing actually. Let me take that back. That I really want to relax, and I'm not fussed how I actually spend my 40th. Although I may look back and wish I spent it differently, but actually, what's important to me, the here and now, is that I actually sit down and do next to nothing. But at the same time, there are small external pressures of, I don't want to say my friends, because my friends have said, you really should do something because you're 40. I've done so many really cool things in my life, and actually on my birthdays, I'm kind of thinking to myself, maybe this one I just have a real reflective one, you know?
It's interesting you say that, because I was 29 in December, so it's not full 40th, but actually I treated myself to a day of nothing.
Nice.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there was those external pressures of do this, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. But to answer the question, so is the question, have we forgotten how to have fun?
I think that is the question. Have we forgotten how to have fun, given the new information that we've learned in 2025 as to how to be successful, the new resources we have, trying to take advantage of the 24 hours that we have in a day, you know? Yeah, I can add a bit more, but I think there's enough nuance.
I don't think we've forgotten how to have fun, but I feel like we are overwhelmed. And because of all of the things that you've mentioned, we live in the information age, right?
Yeah.
And there is so much information everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to turn off that button. And I think that sometimes we feel as if the button, and when I say the button, it's the pause button or the stop button. We feel like that button is going to be pressed on our behalf by nature.
Okay, cool.
But actually, usually when that time comes, it means that we're ill. It means that we've done too much. And that's when life tells you to stop. So actually, it's up to us. Like, we have to take autonomy, look at our calendar and be like, look, no. And that's the main difference that I'm doing now. In my June calendar, there are days that I've got in big rest day. Because I know that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are crazy 18-hour days. On the Tuesday, I have to rest. But if I don't put that in there, it won't happen.